Allah, 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 Allah.
So it's interesting, during the break I was reading, and we were talking before about this word, tariqah, or tariq, or this idea of a path. And subhanAllah, Allah mentions in Surah An-Nisa, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا وَظَلَمُوا لَمْ يُكُنِ اللَّهُ لِيَغْفِرَ لَهُمْ وَلَا لِيَهْدِيَهُمْ طَرِيقًا. And those people who disbelieve and who oppress, Allah is not going to forgive them, and He's not going to guide them on a path. إِلَّا طَرِيقَ جَهَنَّمَ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا أَبَدًا, except for the path of Jahannam itself, and they will dwell therein forever and ever. May Allah forgive us and save us. So I'm not pushing like tariqah or tariq in that sense of the word. Those are certainly very personal issues, but I'm speaking of it in the Quranic sense. Which is also to say that I'm not saying that tariqah is a bad thing in any sense at all. I'm just saying that's not the conversation we're having. I'm not going there. People like to argue about that all day. Alright, so now the question was, what does fasting have to do with Tawhid? What does fasting have to do with Tawhid? And Tawhid is the oneness of Allah, and the oneness of Allah is what's real. What's real is the oneness of Allah. Allah necessarily exists. If you take the world and look at it as a place of causality, a place where, this happened because of that, and that happened because of this, and this happened because of that. That's like a real basic rationalist way of looking at the world. If you look at that, example, my speaking into the microphone requires that the microphone take my voice, and the wiring that's inside will connect it to some kind of a projection situation where you're going to hear my voice louder than it was. So in order for you to hear me, I need to speak into the microphone needs to have the wiring needs to have the projection, and the projection needs you to have ears. Right? So everything is depending on something else for it to exist. And if you were to keep going with that, you would find that everything is depending upon everything. It's an endless chain of dependence. Now, ostensibly speaking, it's also the case that if we were to keep going around and around, if we were to keep following that chain of need, we're going to come right back to me again. Everything needs something else. It's a circular argument. It keeps going around and around and around, and the brain cannot handle that. It's like someone saying, what does friend mean? Friend, right? What is a friend? What does friend mean? A friend's a friend. Okay, what's that mean? I don't know, it's a friend. What's a friend? A friend? A friend is a friend, a friend. No, I don't know. I need you to give me another word so that I can get out of this circle. So likewise, if you look at the fact that everything needs something else in order for it to exist, you'll find that in creation, we are living in a circle. There has to be something that causes things to occur, but itself is not caused. Rationally speaking, that must be the case. Because it is irrational, it is against the mind to have a situation where there's an endless chain of needs and needy people. There has to be something there that doesn't have needs. That's the way it works. So that's a rational proof for the existence of God. However, that entity must necessarily exist because of that scenario. That's why the theologians, they say that God necessarily exists. They're talking about things like this. God must exist, necessarily speaking. Now, what must exist and what is real. And everything else that kind of comes in and out of existence, it's not real in the sense of the term. It's passing, it's coming and it's going. If I was to make my ambitions in life, my purpose in life, to chase after those things which are just coming and going, then I deserve every bit of pain and difficulty that I get in doing so. I deserve it because I'm living below my potential. If Allah gives me difficulty, if I start worshiping the wrong thing, or if I'm doing the wrong things, and Allah starts giving me difficulty and pain in my life, it's the most blessed thing I can ever have. It's because through those things, it will cause me to turn around towards Him. Example: if a child was to go towards a light socket, a little toddler, they can't even speak yet, they're still in diapers, was to go towards a light socket and put their finger in the light socket, right? If the mother were to see that, and she's too far away to pull him away from the light socket, what will she do? She'll shout. What if the baby can't hear? She can't reach him. He's too far away. Wave. Nah. What if his back is to you, or her back? Pray? I'll throw something at the kid. I will throw something at that kid. I will. I'll pick up, hopefully, the lightest object around, maybe a pen, if not, maybe something a little heavier, and I will throw it at that kid, and I will hit that kid with the object, and they're going to cry. But I had to do that because if they went towards a light socket, they're going to die. It's the lesser of two evils, isn't it? So the same thing is for us, that many of us are on the wrong track. We're going the wrong way. Sure, we have our Islam, we're worshiping God, but our travels are going the wrong way. We're not preoccupied with God, we're preoccupied with the world. And so this inward travel, this heart travel that's supposed to occur is going towards the wrong things. When that happens, God, if He loves us, and He does, first He might, I'm being metaphorical, first He might use a pen. No, first He might wave. You know, He might shout, He might wave, He might pick up a pen, and the next thing you know, you have a frying pan against your head. But it makes you stop and say, oh my God, I'm going the wrong way. If God doesn't love you, what will He do? What did He say in the verse? He won't give you guidance. He won't guide them on the way. And one of the signs of not having guidance is not having a care in the world. This world's great. I love this world. It's great. Got a new car, new house, new kids. Everything's grand. Right? That person's not thinking about death. They're not thinking about the passing, the fleeting nature of this world. That's why they're in the commercials like, it's disgusting when you think about what's really happening. They're living in falsity. They're not going towards the truth. They're not going towards the haqiqah. They're going towards the opposite of the truth, which is falsehood. So when Allah gives you difficulties and problems on your path towards Him, know that it's a sign that you know what, you are in His, like you're there. And He loves you so much that He's just gonna, Beta? You know, give you a little something so you just kind of like, oh wow, I'm tripping out. Now, fasting has been prescribed for us. كُتِبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الصِّيَامُ كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Fasting was prescribed upon you as it was prescribed upon those before you. Why? So that you will be God conscious. The purpose of our fast is to bring us into a consciousness, an awareness. What kind of an awareness? That iftar is only in so many hours? No. No, it's an awareness that God is present. God is real. He's more present than you and I are present, because when I'm gone, He'll still be around. Now, taking this model that we kind of went through, I want to read to you a beautiful section it's actually from the Ihya al-Ulumuddin of Imam Ghazali, but it's been translated. It's on, this one is from the Islamic Foundation, the Inner Dimensions of Islamic Worship, Ghazali. It's a UK print. And I'm not getting any money for that, so. That wasn't a plug or anything like that. So anyway, كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Fasting is prescribed upon you as it was prescribed amongst those before you, so that you will have God consciousness. Now all of that, inshallah, we're going to see in Imam Ghazali's breakdown, I believe. We can also say, to use the terminology that he used, we can also call this common, elite, and elite of the elite. As I said, I apologize if brothers don't have access to the board, but basically, so in the three-pronged scenario, Islam, Iman, Ihsan, Sharia, Tariqa, Haqiqa, as we explained it, we're also looking at it in terms of application. We can look at it as being a common Muslim experience. I almost said Muslimic. A common Muslim experience, a more elite experience, and an elite of the elite experience. So what we're going to do is take fasting itself, which is one of the things that we're obliged to do, and see how Islam and Iman and Ihsan, or commonality, being of the elite and the elite of the elite, how it manifests in physical worship. In other words, I'm trying to tell you that Deen is an experience. Deen is not just theory. Deen is an experience. And that's so beautiful about the 5 pillars. Before I became a Muslim, I wanted a religion that would engage me all the time. And subhanAllah, Islam is, you want to be busy, we'll get you busy. Yeah. So anyway, the three grades. Now, this is Imam Ghazali speaking now. He said, it should be known that there are 3 grades of fasting. Common or ordinary, special or elite, and extra special, elite of the elite. The common fasting means abstaining from food, drink, and sexual satisfaction. You just completely, like all the pleasures of life, you're just giving it a little bit of a, right? Remember we talked about wants and desires. We talked about wants and needs. Notice that when it comes to fasting, people say, especially in England, right? Like you talk to a non-Muslim or something like, you're fasting? Yeah. How long? As long as the sun's out. Oh my God. How do you survive? First they think that you're fasting 30 days straight. You're like, you're going to kill yourself, maybe. Right? No, it's only when the sun is up. Look, but Allah didn't take away our needs. The only thing being threatened is our wants. Think about that. And we just panic. Right? And Imam was always going to talk about this later. We spend so much, and even we spend the whole day thinking about the iftar. What we're going to eat, what we're going to cook. We make our, right? People that are in the kitchen are just getting worked. So anyway, we have common fasting, the means of abstaining, which means abstaining from food, drink, and gratification. Then elite, which means keeping one's ears, eyes, and tongue, and hands and feet, and all other organs free from sin. That's the elite. Then he talks about the elite of the elite. This type of fasting. Now we said fasting is abstention, remember? We qualified that fasting is abstention, refrain. Abstention is at the core of our faith. We say La ilaha illallah. What does that mean? There is no God. We abstain from all that stuff. We fast from that. There is no God but Allah. So this elite of the elite fasting means fasting of the heart from unworthy concerns and worldly thoughts and total disregard of everything but God. Great and gracious is He. This kind of fast is broken by thinking of anything other than God. Great and glorious is He and the hereafter. It is broken by thinking of worldly matters except for those conducive to religious ends, since these constitute provisions for the hereafter and are not of this lower world. Those versed in the spiritual life of the heart have even said that a sin is recorded against one who concerns himself all day with arrangements for breaking his fast. Whoopsie daisy. Such anxiety stems from lack of trust Think about the wisdom though. Don't think about yourself as being guilty. Just think of the wisdom. He said, because this comes from a lack of trust. Such anxiety stems from a lack of trust in the bounty of God. Great and glorious is He, and from lack of certain faith in His promised sustenance. You guys are like, yeah, but I mean, it takes a long time to make some of that food. I asked someone who came from the subcontinent to the U.S., and I was a new Muslim. I asked him, what do you think about American food? He goes, man, it tastes like cardboard. It's terrible, it has no flavor. When you go to India and Pakistan, you realize there's a lot of work in there, you know? But what he's saying is that when we're spending our whole day thinking about that meal at the end of the day, so think about it deeper. It comes from a place where we have this lack of trust. All we're thinking about all day is, what am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? What am I going to eat? To this third degree belongs the prophets, the true saints, and the intimates of God. It does not lend itself to detailed examination in words, as its true nature is better revealed in action. May Allah make us people of action. It consists in utmost dedication to God. Great and glorious is He. To the neglect of everything other than God, exalted is He. It is bound up with the significance of His words. قُلِ اللَّهِ وَضَرَهُمْ فِي قَوْلِهِمْ يَلْعَبُونَ. He said that this state, all of it is wrapped up in this Quranic verse. قُلِ اللَّهِ وَضَرَهُمْ فِي قَوْلِهِمْ يَلْعَبُونَ. Say Allah and leave them in their vain talk playing. There are some people that their travel to God, their deen, their ihsan, their arrival, their worship of God from their soul is so strong that they embody this verse. قُلِ اللَّهِ, say Allah, وَضَرَهُمْ فِي خَوْضِهِمْ يَلْعَبُونَ, and leave them in their vain talk playing. These people are so much in love and are so much in the presence of God that anything that does not... No, for these people, there is nothing that is not an indication of God to them. In other words, they're like those people that they couldn't wait to go to paradise. To see God, they want to see Him now, be with Him now. That desire, that love to be with their Maker, they couldn't wait. So everything for them is an indication of God's presence. So, for example, when they look around and they see light in the room, they see a nur. Allah is the light. Allahu nur as-samawati wal-ard. Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. When they look at other people, they don't just see bodies. They see that Allah is the giver of life, al-muhyi. When they look at dead creatures, they see that Allah is the giver of death, al-mumit. These people are constantly in God's presence. They're in a presence like two people that love each other don't want to leave one another's presence. They're with God like that. To think about not being in that presence breaks their hearts. So these people, as you can see, they fast from everything that's not Him because they just don't want it. They just want God. So these have inward requirements. So Imam Ghazali is now going to talk about the inward requirements of these different levels. And it's interesting because he jumps right to level 2. Level 1 doesn't have inward requirements. You know, you can fast. If you fast and you watch inappropriate things, does that break your fast? Technically, no. If you fast and you say inappropriate things, does that break your fast? Technically, no. But if you complain in Ramadan about how you feel distant from God, even though you're fasting, I'll tell you why. As for the elite fasting, this is the kind practiced by the righteous. It means keeping all one's organs free from sin, and 6 things are required for its accomplishment. 6 things. See not what displeases God. Speak not what displeases God. Hear not what displeases God. Do not what displeases God. Avid overeating. Let me back up a little bit. So he says, so the first one, he said that a chaste regard, restrained from viewing anything that is blameworthy or reprehensible, or that distracts the heart and diverts it from the remembrance of God. Great and glorious is He. So now He's teaching us how to make our fast more rewarding. He said that, he narrates the hadith of the Prophet, peace be upon him. He said the Prophet, peace be upon him, the furtive glance, the secret glance, the glance that's stolen, is one of the poison arrows of Satan. Okay. Satan or Shaitan, but you can't say Satan. Okay. The furtive glance is one of the poison arrows of Satan. On him be God's curse. Whoever forsakes it for fear of God will receive from Him, great and glorious is He, a faith that's the sweetness of which he will find within his heart. In other words, like for example, like looking at someone of the opposite sex, specifically in a way that's you're trying to steal a glance at them, for example. He said that the hadith mentions that if you stay away from that, Allah will give you a sweetness in your a sweetness in your faith as a result of that. Jabir relates from Anas that God's Messenger, peace be upon him, said, 5 things break a man's fast. Now, this is a hadith that's indicating the inward realities we're talking about. When he says breaks the fast here, it doesn't mean that it's no longer valid. It means that it breaks the benefit of the fast. 5 things breaks a man's fast: lying, backbiting, scandal mongering, perjury, and a lustful gaze. These things break a man's or a woman's fast. Does that mean that the fast is invalid? No, it means it breaks it from being from amongst the elite. Your fast is just one of the fasts of the commoners, and don't complain about a commoner's fast. Speak not what displeases God. Guarding one's tongue from twaddle, new word for me, twaddle. Lying, backbiting, scandal-mongering, obscenity, rudeness, wrangling, and controversy. Making it observe silence and occupying it with remembrance of God. Great and glorious is He, and with recitation of the Quran, this is the fasting of the tongue. Said Sufyan, backbiting vitiates the fast. Layth quotes Mujahid as saying, 2 habits vitiate fasting: backbiting and telling lies. Again, Sufyan al-Thawri, he represents even a madhab of the past that is extant now, no longer extant actually. But when we hear this, what we understand to mean is that it vitiates the quality of the fast. It's no longer a fast of the person of Iman. It's a fast of the person of Islam, just a regular Muslim. The Prophet on him be said, fasting is a shield, so when one of you is fasting, he should not use foul or foolish talk. If someone attacks him or insults him, let him say, I am fasting, I am fasting. According to tradition, 2 women were fasting during the time of God's Messenger, on him be peace. They were so fatigued towards the end of the day from hunger and thirst that they were on the verge of collapsing. And you'll see why in a second. They therefore sent a message to God's Messenger, on him be peace, requesting permission to break their fast. In response, the Prophet, on him be peace, sent them a bowl and said, tell them to vomit into it from what they've eaten. One of them vomited and half filled the bowl with fresh blood and tender meat, while the other brought up the same, so that they filled it between them. The onlookers were astonished. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, these 2 women have been fasting from what God made lawful to them, right? And have broken their fast from what God made unlawful to them. They sat together and indulged in backbiting, and here is the flesh of the people they maligned. Wow, this is an example when Allah uses the Messenger to show them the unseen. So now you know why they were complaining about their fast. They got nothing out of it. The sweetness of faith was not on their tongues. Hear not what displeases God. Closing one's ears to everything reprehensible, for everything unlawful to utter is likewise unlawful to listen to. That is why God, great and glorious is He, equated the eavesdropper with the profiteer. In His words, listeners to falsehood, consumers of illicit gain. سَمَّاعُونَ لِلْكَذِبِ وَلَكَارُونَ السُّحْتِ. God, great and glorious as He has said, why do their rabbis and priests not forbid them to utter sin and consume unlawful profit? Silence in the face of backbiting is therefore unlawful. God exalted as He has said, you are then just like them, in Nisa. That is why the Prophet peace be upon him said, the backbiter and his listener are co-partners in sin. If you hear someone backbiting someone else, to be quiet is to partake. What should you do? Ask them to stop. Or in a nice way, just say something nice about the person. And say it in a very, well, I happen to know that they're good people. So that they understand, like, oh wow, like I'm not helping you. Because if you're silent, you're just kind of, silence is consent. No, sorry. Silence is consent in that sense. Do not do what displeases God. So now it's talking about actions altogether. Keeping all other limbs and organs away from sin. The hands and feet from deeds that are disliked, and the stomach from questionable food at the time of breaking the fast. It is meaningless to fast, to abstain from lawful food, only to break one's fast on what is unlawful. A man who fasts like this may be compared to one who builds a castle but demolishes a city. Lawful food is injurious in quantity, not in quality. So fasting is to reduce the former. A person might well give up excessive use of medicine from fear of ill effects, but he would be a fool to switch to taking poison. The unlawful is a poison deadly to religion, while the lawful is a medicine. Beneficial in small doses, but harmful in excess. So lawful food is harmful in excess. The object of fasting is to induce moderation. Said the Prophet, peace be upon him, how many of those who fast get nothing from it, but hunger and thirst? Number 5, avoid overeating. If you're gaining weight in Ramadan, something's wrong. Especially in England. How many hours are there between Maghrib and Isha?
One and a half.
Between Maghrib and Isha? How many? 4?
Between Maghrib and Isha, 1 hour.
Are you serious? Wait, Maghrib comes in what time? 9:40. And then Fajr comes in when? Yeah, so it's more than 1 hour. I think you're thinking about Isha.
Yeah, oh, sorry, I thought you said Isha.
Yeah. I said Isha? Because that's why you said 1 hour. And mashallah, this is what fasting might do to someone. Okay, I was thinking to myself, I was like, okay, what's wrong with my schedule? Alright, so in that period of time, is the objective of fasting that we should, all the food we could have eaten the entire day, make up for it in that 4-hour period of time? Is that the object? Then why do we eat like that? Let's do ourselves a favor. Break your fast. Stand up and pray. Break your fast. Don't have a meal and then stand up and pray. Break your fast. Stand up and pray. After you finish your prayer, go back to your house with your family, your friends. Eat enough to where you're not hungry anymore. Do not gorge. Eat enough to where you're not hungry anymore, to where the pain and the hunger pains have subsided, and you have enough to carry out your worship and to not be thinking about food. Just try that. Try that and see the difference. Well, for one thing, it'll help you out a lot more when you try to pray Isha. Also, you'll be able to sleep. You'll sleep easier. You know, one of the secrets of Tahajjud prayer, one of the secrets of praying the Tahajjud prayer is don't go to bed with a full stomach. Go to bed with an empty stomach. It's much easier to wake up then if you want to pray the Tahajjud prayer. And I suggest that we do try to do that. And believe me, trying to do that in England, whoa. Also, if your stomach is not full, your spirituality, your spiritual state, your spiritualness, you'll feel it get stronger and stronger and stronger. When you feed your body, the heaviness of your body, the thickness of your body overcomes your spirit, and you find it difficult to obey Allah. You find it difficult to worship Allah. So not to overindulge in lawful food at the time of breaking fast to the point of stuffing one's belly. Imam Ghazali says that there is no receptacle more odious to God great and glorious is he, than a belly stuffed full with lawful food. Of what use is the fast as a means of conquering God's enemy and abating appetite, if at the time of breaking it, one not only makes up for all one has missed during the daytime, but perhaps also indulges in a variety of extra foods? It has even become the custom, he's talking about his time. He died in 1111. It has even become the custom to stock up for Ramadan with all kinds of foodstuffs, so that more is consumed during that time than in the course of several other months put together. It is well known that the object of fasting is to experience hunger and to check desire in order to reinforce the soul in piety. If the stomach is starved from early morning till evening, so that its appetite is aroused and its craving intensified, and it is then offered delicacies and allowed to eat its fill, its taste for pleasure is increased. Its taste for pleasure is increased. You're doing the opposite of what Ramadan is required from us. Its taste for pleasure is increased and its force exaggerated. It becomes stronger. Passions are activated, which would have lain dormant under normal conditions. In other words, you're doing more for your nafs in Ramadan than outside of Ramadan if you are overeating. The spirit and secret nature of fasting is to weaken the forces which are Satan's means of leading us back to evil. It is therefore essential to cut down one's intake to what one would consume on a normal night when not fasting, at least. No benefit is derived from the fast if one consumes as much as one would usually take during the day and night combined. Moreover, one of the properties consists in taking little sleep during the daytime, so that one feels the hunger and thirst and becomes conscious of the weakening of one's powers, with the consequent purification of the heart. In other words, feel the process. Don't eat all night and then sleep all day. You did not fast. As a common Muslim, you obeyed Sharia, but did you fast the fast of one of the elite? Did you fast one of the fasts of the elite of the elite? I know that before I was a Muslim, whenever there was a party, I wanted to make sure I was the best partier. Well, there is a party happening. It's called Deen, and believe me, you're going to find some benefit now. I'm telling you, and you can tell me better stories. But wait till you leave this world, right? A tent inside paradise, a tent made of pearl that's 60 miles long. That or a house made of brick, your choice. Anyway, one should let a certain degree of weakness carry over into the night, making it easier to perform the night prayers and to recite the litanies. It may then be that Satan will not hover around one's heart, and that one will behold the kingdom of heaven. The night of destiny represents the night on which something of this kingdom is revealed. That is what is meant by the words of God. Inna anzalnahu fi laylatul qadr. Anyone who puts a bag of food between his heart and his breast becomes blind to this revelation. Nor is keeping the stomach empty sufficient to remove the veil, unless one also empties the mind of everything but God. That is the entire matter. And the starting point of it all is cutting down on food. And we'll get to the third level in a minute, but he's giving us a hint. Look to God with fear and hope. After the fast has been broken, the heart should swing like a pendulum between fear and hope. For one does not know if one's fast will be accepted, so that one will find favor with God or whether it will be rejected, leaving one among those he abhors. This is how one should fast this is how one should be at the end of any action. Now, faith lies between fear and hope. So when you actually sit down and think about your actions like this, like, look, I fasted all day. I'm hopeful that Allah accepted it, and I'm fearful that He may not. This is the fast of a believer. Amen. It is related of Abul Hasan al-Basri. Sorry, this is actually Abul Hasan ibn Hasan al-Basri, that he once passed by a group of people who were laughing merrily. He said, God, great and glorious is He, has He said, has God made the month of Ramadan a race course on which His creatures compete in His worship. Some have come in first and won, while others have lagged behind and lost. It is absolutely amazing to find anybody laughing and playing about on the day when success attends the victors and failure the wastrels. By God, if the veil were lifted off, the door of good will surely be preoccupied with his good works, and the doer of good will surely be preoccupied with his good works, and the evildoer with his evil deeds. In other words, the man who fasts has been accepted. The man whose fast has been accepted. The man whose fast has been accepted will be. In other words, the man whose fast has been accepted will be too full of joy to indulge in idle sport, while for one who has suffered rejection, laughter will be precluded by remorse. Al-Ahnaf ibn Qais, from him is reported that he was once told, "You are an aged elder. Fasting would enfeeble you." But he replied, "By this I am making ready for a long journey. Obedience to God, glorified as He, is easier to endure than His punishment." Such are the inwardly significant meanings of fasting. Now the Imam does go on and he talks about some important aspects about this, but what I wanted to do, so that it's completely in line with what we were talking about, is to go back to the point he was alluding to when he says, anyone who puts a bag of food between his heart and his breast becomes blind to this revelation. Nor is keeping the stomach empty sufficient to remove the veil, unless one also empties the mind of everything but God. That is the entire matter. And the starting point of all this is cutting down on food. 5 minutes? Really? How about 10? How about American 5? Okay. When you love something, the reason why you love that thing is because that thing, it fulfills your needs. That's the secret of love. If you have a need for closeness, if you have a need for companionship, if you have a need for to be cherished, if you have a need for beauty in your life, all these things, these are reasons why people love. When you love something, when you try to seek fulfillment, that itself is an act of love. Everything that every moment when someone's trying to be fulfilled is actually an act of love. That's why people love the wrong things. Right? Some people, they love crime because crime makes them feel fulfilled. Some people, they love disobedience because there's something inside of them that has been enacted which requires them to fulfill it. May Allah save us. Every action that we do, every action of fulfillment is an action of love. Now the question that comes down to mind then is, who is the one who is fulfilling all things? Who is the one who is fulfilling all things? If I need food, who does it come from? If I need air, who does it come from? If I need sustenance, who does it come from? If I need life, who does it come from? If I need protection, who does it come from? If I need an offensive move, who will it come from? Everything in my life, I can think everything that I can think of does not come from in and of itself, but rather it must come from God. It must be that way. If I had, and I'm gonna tease you a little bit because it's Ramadan and we're not supposed to be eating and drinking, as long as we're legally required not to do so. I am going to tease you with a glass of water. This glass of water is here. It's cold and tall. Right? It's cold and it's tall, and Americans, we love cold. I notice you guys don't really like cold drinks that much. When you go to the corner store or whatever, you go to purchase like an iron brew, whatever. Right? It's not that cold. In America, man, that thing is like nearly iced. So I like it really cold. So this is a cup of water. It's so cold that it has the water on the outside, the condensation, the water on the outside. Like you're like, wow, it's so good that it is leaking. Right? The condensation is occurring on the outside. Now, if someone says to me, drink some water. No, if I tell someone, listen, I'm thirsty. What would you tell them to do? If you're thirsty, what would you do? What should you do? Drink something. If I said to you, I'm kind of thirsty. You said to me, I'm kind of thirsty, and I go, oh, well, why don't you eat some barley? What would you say? That's not the correct response. No, I'm thirsty. Oh, eat a brick. God. So, no, because we know that the way that Allah has made things is that when I'm thirsty, I need to drink a glass of water that will quench my thirst. True or false? You with me or you're not with me? Now, does the water itself quench thirst? Does the water have the property of quenching the thirst itself? Or is it that Allah has put the quality of quenching thirst inside the water? Which one is it? Allah has put the quality of quenching thirst inside the water, and the proof of that is that when we find that Allah told to Abraham to make the fire cold and peaceful for him. If fire had its own independent quality, it wouldn't be able to listen to that. So Allah puts the qualities inside things. Allah makes the water quench our thirst. The water itself does not quench our thirst. So that means that when I am thirsty, and when I want my thirst to be quenched, and when I reach for the glass of water, that means, and when I pull, you guys are looking at my glass like, when I take that glass of water in my hands and I put it to my lips and I drink that glass of water and the water goes down and I'm not thirsty anymore. That means, and I know for sure that glass of water does not have the capacity or the ability to quench my thirst. I know, metaphorically speaking, that when I reach for that glass of water, I'm reaching for the one who quenches my thirst. Not that cup. That cup can't do anything. In the world of metaphors, I'm reaching for God. And He's the one who will quench my thirst. If I want to stand up, Ar-Rafi', the one who raises things, is the one who will cause me to give me the capacity to stand up. It's not me pushing myself up. It's Allah who will cause that. And if I want to sit back down again, Al-Khafid, the one who debases things, the one who lowers things, He is the one who caused that to happen. But we live in a world of means. And we get caught up in the means and forget about the one who is the means of the means. If I look at that reality and that truth, I'm asking you, is it because I'm Muslim? Is that the fact? Is it true because I'm Muslim? Or is it true because that's reality? Are there multiple realities or is there one reality? No, there's one reality. And that reality is the same for everybody even if they don't realize that. There is nothing but God happening around me all day long. He's sustaining, He's cherishing, He's nourishing, He's raising, He's lowering, He's giving life, He's giving death. He's doing all these things and He's fulfilling every single one of my needs. When I breathe in, that air that goes into my lungs. Are my lungs, are the lungs bringing the air in and then getting the oxygen from my body? Or is it Allah? And when I exhale the carbon monoxide that goes outside, are my lungs doing that or is it Allah? Is there ever a moment when Allah is not there? Is there ever a moment when Allah is not present? Is there ever a moment when He's not fulfilling every single need that I have? And there's not a moment that I exist when I'm not in a state of need. To that extent that some of the ulama, the scholars of Ash'ari Aqidah, these theologians, they have the opinion even to that extent that literally everything is calling upon God, every moment of life, to the extent that God is giving existence to creation at every moment. So imagine a movie screen. You know the movies are just slides. They're just still images. And you speed them up so fast that you can't, it looks like they're moving. That's what life is like. At every moment, God is giving permission for us to exist, and permission for us to live, permission for us to be found on the planet. And so that every moment we're turning back to Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why we say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. What does that mean? We say it all the time. Yeah, we're from Allah, and to Him is our return. Now, raji'un doesn't, what it means actually is this. We belong to Allah, and to Him we are returning now. And anyone in this room who speaks Arabic can verify that fact. Allah didn't say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi sanarji'u. Verily we are from Allah, and to whom we are going to return. Giving it this future tense like this. It says, verily we belong to Allah, and to Him we are returning now. We are in a constant state of return. We are constantly looking back to Allah, constantly communicating with Allah, even if we don't realize it. Our state, our existence is constantly calling on Him to give us one more moment, give us one more moment. And there will be a time will come when that request will come and Allah will say no. Now that is called reality. That is called the truth. That is called Tawhid. That is called oneness. That is called the nature of Ubudiyyah. That's called being owned. That's what we have. That's what this tradition is about. That's what we're dealing with. That's what this gift is to us. It brings us back to what's actually happening in the universe. And the reason why you and I have to fast is because we are so indulged in the world that we forget about the reality of what's happening. You might say, well, I never knew. I'll tell you, you were lying. Allah said, فَذْكُرُونِي أَذْكُرْكُمْ. Remember me, and I will remember you. How can you remember something? How can you be asked to remember something that you don't know? Abdul Rahman, how you doing? Remember when you and I went to London that one time together? Remember? Do you remember the time we went to London? No, remember. Remember. God is telling us to remember, not like that. Because I just met the brother a few hours ago. God is not telling us to remember Him like that. He's telling us to remember like you remember something that happened. قَالَ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ. He said, am I not your Lord? قَالُوا بَلَى. They said, indeed. We know Allah. We know His majesty. We know His presence. We know His being. We know His perfection. We know His beauty. We know all of it. And we're being told to remember Him because we forgot. Now, when it comes to Ramadan, how does fasting have anything? What is the correlation between fasting and Tawheed? It's right there. What is the reality? What is the meaning of dhikr? What does dhikr mean? Tell me. Okay, it's translated as remembrance, but what does it mean? What is the reality of dhikr? The reality of dhikr is that you forget everything but the one being remembered. And Allah's right is that He be remembered, not within. Allah's right is that He be remembered, not alongside with something else. Allah's right. The question is this: we've been worshiping Allah so long the way that we want to. When are we going to worship Allah the way He wants to be worshipped? I told you before about worshiping one's nafs. I told you before about worshiping in such a way that it pleases you. But Ramadan is about, look, we've been worshiping Allah the way that we want to. And the way that we want to worship Allah has made us unhappy. We worship Allah the way we want to and we're upset. We're depressed. We feel down. We don't feel anything. Nothing's happening for us. Ramadan is about worshiping Allah the way that He deserves to be worshipped. كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. Fasting has been prescribed upon you, as it was to those that came before you, so that you will have God consciousness, so that you will remember Allah in the way that He should be remembered. And the way that is that everything else drops away. The first step in that is the fasting of the commoner. This is Sharia. You don't eat, you don't drink, you don't engage in the pleasures of life. Why? Because your nafs have taken over. My nafs have taken over. I want biryani and I want it now. That God stuff, save it for later. Food's halal, brother, what's your problem? The second stage is that you have a quality in your fasting that, yeah, I'm not eating, and I'm also not going to backbite either. Do you know why I'm not going to backbite? Because that's God's property. I'm not going to backbite God's property. I'm not going to talk bad about somebody else. That's God's property. Like if I borrow your car and I go for a drive, right? And I bring the car back to you, all types of messed up. It's been flipped a few times, and the window screen is gone. I took the liberty of repainting it for you with a spray can. Right? I give it back to you and I say, MashaAllah, brother, I love you. Right? What are you going to say to me? Yeah. He laughs. Even a kid will laugh. Right? You're going to say, yo, if that's your love, I don't want to see your hate. And the reason why that is because I'm treating your property badly. How can I say that I love you when I'm treating your property badly? How can we fast? How can we physically fast and backbite God's property? How can we physically fast and treat God's property poorly? How can we do that? How can we say that, oh Allah, I'm fasting for you, but I don't care about your property? Oh, so-and-so, I love you to death, but I don't care about your car. That's the second level. That's the reason why it's like this. So you abstain from, you have an interior etiquette with God. Allah, I'm aware of you outwardly. I know that you see me. No one else, do you know why fasting is so prized with God? Because you can't see it. Like right now, if we finish talking, I get up and I go and I'm a traveler. I technically don't have to fast, but alhamdulillah, like fasting is a good thing. I go over and I drink some water. Like I have this niyyah for fasting, and I drink some water. No one else can see. What difference? How would you know? That's why fasting is for Allah, because no one else can see it. It's ikhlas, it's sincerity. Well, that's outwardly. How about we fast for God inwardly too? That Allah, I'm not going to think badly about people. I'm not going to have this grudges against people. I'm going to abstain from that for a little while. I'm not going to backbite people and treat them badly. I'm not going to do all that kind of stuff. Allah, this is your month. If we do that, what happens is that Allah will cause, do you know how Ramadan starts? You see the crescent moon. You see that? Well, there's a moon inside that rises too. It's the moon of knowing God. There's a crescent that arises inside too of a new day of knowing God. And how that happens is that when a person reaches the level of ihsan. What did the Prophet say about ihsan? أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ وَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. That you worship Allah as if you see Him. Equality. And if that doesn't happen, nobody sees you. So that in our fasting, we have such a quality in our fasting that Allah, look at me, here I am. I'm your slave. I'm abstaining from what you told me to abstain from. I don't do what you told. I don't eat. I don't drink. It's for my own benefit. But you know what? I love you. And since I love you, I'm not going to use my inward state to disobey you. And on top of that, I'm so in love with just the whole idea of you. I don't even want to look at anything else but you. I just want Allah make it that you make the world a sign that even if I look into people's faces, I'm still seeing you. I don't want to be veiled from you. I don't want to be distant from you. I don't want to be far away from you. I love you too much. I can't take it. Look at what you've done for me. Allah, you gave me this form. You gave me this brain. You gave me this heart. You gave me eyes. You gave me ears. How can I use them against you? You gave them to me. How would I be if I use these things to forget about you? So that in the end, a person realizes the state of ihsan, which is that you worship, that you have this, you have the fasting of the elite, the fasting of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. It's contained in all these three. You're fasting in your body, you're fasting in your mind, you're fasting in your soul. So to end, finally, what does fasting have to do with Tawhid? My question to you is, what does it not have to do with Tawhid? Jazakallah khair. I don't think I'm allowed to question and answer.
No.
Okay, maybe that's done. Inshallah. So until next time, Jazakallah khair. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله رب العالمين.